Not so darn bad, cried Carlyle excitedly. I guess that little C knows his way around this corner of the Atlantic. His exuberance was contagious, and Ardita became quite jubilant. It's an absolutely surefire hiding place. Lordy, yes, it's the sort of island you read about. The rowboat was lowered into the Golden Lake, and they pulled to shore. Come on, said Carlyle, as they landed in the slushy sand. We'll go exploring. The fringe of palms was in turn ringed in by a round mile of flat, sandy country. They followed it south, and brushing through a farther rim of tropical vegetation, came out on a pearl-gray virgin beach where Ardita kicked off her brown golf shoes — she seemed to have permanently abandoned stockings — and went wading. Then they sauntered back to the yacht, where the indefatigable Babe had luncheon ready for them. He had posted a lookout on the high cliff to the north to watch the sea on both sides, though he doubted if the entrance to the cliff was generally known. He had never even seen a map on which the island was marked. "What's its name?" asked Ardita. "The island, I mean." "No name 'tall," chuckled Babe. "Reckon she's just island, that's all." In the late afternoon they sat with their backs against great boulders on the highest part of the cliff, and Carlyle sketched for her his vague plans. He was sure they were hot after him by this time. The total proceeds of the coup he had pulled off, and concerning which he still refused to enlighten her, he estimated to be just under $1 million. He counted on lying up here several weeks and then setting off southward, keeping well outside the usual channels of travel round the Horn, and heading for Callao in Peru. The details of coaling and provisioning he was leaving entirely to Babe, who, it seemed, had sailed these seas in every capacity from cabin boy aboard a coffee trader to virtual first mate on a Brazilian pirate craft, whose skipper had long since been hung. "If he had been white, he'd have been king of South America long ago," said Carlyle empathetically. "When it comes to intelligence, he makes Booker T. Washington look like a moron. He's got the guile of every race and nationality whose blood is in his veins, and that's half a dozen, or I'm a liar. He worships me because I'm the only man in the world who can play better ragtime than he can. We used to sit together on the wharves down on the New York waterfront, he with a bassoon and me with an oboe, and we'd blend minor keys and African harmonics 1,000 years old, until the rats would crawl up the posts and sit round groaning and squeaking like dogs will in front of a phonograph." Ardita roared. "How can you tell him?" Carlyle grinned. "I swear that's what the goss. What are you going to do when you get to Callao? She interrupted. Take ship for India. I want to be a Raja. I mean it. My idea is to go up into Afghanistan somewhere, buy up a palace and a reputation, and then after about 5 years appear in England with a foreign accent and a mysterious past. But India first. Do you know, they say that all the gold in the world drifts very gradually back to India. Something fascinating about that to me. And I want leisure to read, an immense amount." "How about after that?" "Then," he answered defiantly, "comes aristocracy. Laugh if you want, but at least, you'll have to admit it, I know what I want, which I imagine is more than you do." "On the contrary," contradicted Ardita, reaching into her pocket for her cigarette case. "When I met you, I was in the midst of a great uproar of all my friends and relatives because I did know what I wanted." "What was that?" "A man." He started. "You mean you were engaged?" "After a fashion. If you hadn't come aboard, I had every intention of slipping ashore yesterday evening — how long ago it seems — and meeting him in Palm Beach. He's waiting for me there with a bracelet that once belonged to the Tsar of Russia. Once belonged to Catherine of Russia. Now, don't mutter anything about aristocracy," she put in quickly. "I liked him simply because he had an imagination and the utter courage of his convictions." "But your family disapproved, eh?" What there is of it. Only a silly uncle and a sillier aunt. It seemed he got into some scandal with a red-haired woman named Mimi something. It was frightfully exaggerated, he said, and men don't lie to me, and anyways, I didn't care what he'd done. It was the future that counted, I'd see to that. When a man's in love with me, he doesn't care for other amusements. I told him to drop her like a hot cake, and he did." "I feel rather jealous," said Carlyle, frowning, and then he laughed. "I guess I'll just keep you along with us until we get to Callao. Then I'll lend you enough money to get back to the States. By that time, you'll have a chance to think about that you'll have had a chance to think that gentleman over a little more." "Don't talk to me like that," fired up Ardita. "I won't tolerate the parental attitude from anybody. Do you understand me?" He chuckled, and then stopped, rather abashed, as her cold anger seemed to fold about him and chill him. Fold him. I'm sorry," he offered, uncertainly. "Oh, don't apologize. I can't stand men who say 'I'm sorry' in that manly, reserved tone. Just shut up." A pause ensued, a pause which Carlyle found rather awkward, but which Ardita seemed not to notice at all as she sat contentedly, enjoying her cigarette and gazing out at the shining sea. After a minute she crawled out on a rock and lay with her face over the edge, looking down. Carlyle, watching her, reflected how it seemed impossible for her to assume an ungraceful attitude. "Oh, look," she cried, "there's a sort of ledge down there. Wide ones of all different heights." "We'll go swimming tonight," she said excitedly, "by moonlight." "Wouldn't you rather go in at the beach on the other end?" "Not a chance. I like to dive. You can use my uncle's bathing suit. It'll only fit you like a gunny sack, because he's a very flabby man. I've got a one-piece that shocked the natives all along the Atlantic coast from Biddleford to St. Augustine." "I suppose you're a shark." "Yes, I'm pretty good. And I look cute too. A sculptor up at Rye last summer told me my calves are worth $500. There didn't seem to be any answer to this, so Carlyle was silent, permitting himself only a discreet interior smile.